So I bet if you've ever even mentioned wanting to become a real estate investor or buying multifamilies, someone around you or close to you has told you don't do it. You're going to be stuck fixing toilets at 2 a.m., having tenants suck, all this, all horror shows, and they never show the good side of it. But in today's video, I'm going to go over my worst experience as a landlord in the short 3 years I've been doing it. I have a total of 4 units in 2 different buildings. So I'll tell you from my perspective, my worst experiences. My name is Moynihan. I'm a real estate agent and investor here in Keene, New Hampshire. And if you've been looking to get into the multifamily scene or start investing, or you're already are an investor, feel free to reach out, contact me. I'd love to connect, always looking to meet new investors. And my contact information is on the screen here or down below in the description. Just check it out, shoot me a text or an email, whatever works. So you probably clicked on this video because you want to hear some big, horrible experience that I've had my past 3 years as a landlord. And to be honest, I really haven't had a ton of issues in my 3 years, but I am going to be going over the ones I have had, how I solved them, and what lessons I've learned from them to avoid them in the future. So let's get into it. So my very first issue probably came a few weeks after I bought my first investment property, and it was nothing big. It was just a outlet wasn't working. So instead of hiring someone, I went down and did it myself. Shocked myself because I forgot to turn off the power to the kitchen before I started messing with the outlet. So lesson learned there, shut off breaker box to wherever you're going to be working. But no big deal, got the outlet changed, the tenant was happy, and that was really the only problem that ever came up with that tenant. And then probably a year or so later, I had an issue where the tenant downstairs was not getting any hot water. I was like, oh crap, here comes a problem. After further investigation, I went downstairs into the basement and realized that they were out of oil and their hot water came off their furnace. So that was a simple solution. Called the oil company that day, got oil delivered. It did end up cost me like an extra like 150 or so because I had to pay the oil guy to restart the furnace because I didn't want to mess anything up because I knew it ran dry and I didn't know how to restart it from them. So I just said, here, you take care of it. So it cost me 150 bucks. But I was under the assumption because I filled both the tanks at the same time that they would both get used in about the same time. Not true. They went through it a lot quicker than I did. So lesson learned is pay more attention if you're paying for your tenant's heat. But as of recently, I've been starting to include less in my leases just so I don't have as much stuff I have to pay attention to while I'm getting more and more units. Lesson there is just simplify it and put what you can on the tenants and what you can and know you're actually keep up doing on you. All right, so here's another funny one. It's actually non-payment of rent, and you're not gonna think of like in a bad way. So usually when I get paid rent, it'll take a few days for it to process through the property management system to my bank account. So his rent's due on like the 15th, and I usually get it around the 18th. So I didn't think anything of it. And then a couple days later, I get a text from him, and my tenant literally reached out to me and was like, "Hey, just so you know, like I'm not getting a request for rent, and it's saying I don't owe anything. Where am I supposed to be sending my rent to?" I was like, "Well, that's weird." So I went to my property management system, and what happened was I set it for a year lease. He stayed longer than a year, and we already renewed, but I didn't know I had to change it in the system for it to keep sending him emails for rent. So super simple fix, took me about 2 minutes and he paid it that day. So lesson here is find yourself great tenants that actually want to stay up to date with rent and not fall behind. He literally reached out to me like a day or maybe 2 days after it was due, being like, hey, I haven't paid this. Where do I pay it? So really nice that I have a great tenant in that place that was proactive and let me know, and I fixed it up, and now I know that I have to pay more attention to my property management system and make sure that it keeps collecting rent after a lease term is done. And I know this isn't a ton of problems, but that's really all I've had to deal with so far. I recently just got 2 more units, so now I'm actually in 2 different buildings and gonna have 3 total tenants. So knock on wood, let's hope no more problems come up. But if they do, I'll address them as I do. The new tenants I already have, I got them a new dryer and did a couple things that I had to fix. But all that got taken care of, and it was nothing crazy. I inherited the tenant, so I knew there was probably some underlying problems that I'd have to fix once I bought the place and take care of that in a timely manner and make sure everyone's happy. And now this last one I'm going to go over. It hasn't been an issue for me, knock on wood. Let's hope it doesn't. But it is getting good tenants in place. And I think the biggest thing to this is you have to be strict on who you allow to rent your apartment. Like you have to think about it. It's your house. You're literally renting a whole spot to live. You want to have people who seem like they're going to care about your place and not destroy it. So when they move out in a year or however long it is, it's not a gross pigsty with holes in the wall and you have to change everything, including the doors, because everything's just gross. So this is where you want to set your parameters and actually have some things where like you have a minimum credit score and you have a minimum of like 3 times income compared to rent. So if your rent's 1,500, you should have 3 times that be your minimum for the income that they should have. And it's just stuff actually being strict about it. Like I've waited a month or two here and there. I've waited a month twice, I think, to get the right tenant in place because I had a really good feeling when I first met them. They gave off really good just vibes and seem responsible and seem like they'll pay rent. And then you do the background check, make sure everything checks through, check their credit score, all that stuff. And knock on wood, I've had a great time with that. So don't really be in a rush to fill your apartment, because if you're in a rush, you're going to look over things and be like, oh, well, that's okay for now. And then it bites you in the butt 6 months from now. Or when you put your posting up to advertise your vacancy and someone texts you out of the blue and be like, hey, super interested in your place. I have 6 months advance cash. I can pay today and move in this weekend. That's a red flag. That's a red flag. You should really never take cash. I never take cash. I only let them pay with a check or online. And I really push online because then they have their history of paying and I have my history of receiving. And here's another secret to finding a really great tenant: offer a really great apartment. Like, if you actually update your apartment, you paint the walls, you paint the doors, your kitchen's updated, you don't have broken stuff, you're probably going to attract better tenants. So, like, it's kind of on you to supply something that good tenants would want. You're not going to have a great tenant living in a slumlord's apartment because they probably wouldn't live in those standards that some of the slumlords have. I'm just being honest with that. And a lot of these people that don't keep their apartments in great shape, they rent them out for usually under market value. And then within a month, they're probably getting calls saying, this is broke, I need this repaired. If it's happening that quickly, chances are that was a problem before they moved in, and either you didn't know about it, you didn't check it, or you just didn't address it and you left it ignored and now it's a problem. So is it really the tenant's fault, or is it you didn't actually fix your building before you rented your building? Rent something that works, okay? But all in all, that really concludes my worst experiences as a landlord. And I know you probably wanted more drama, some drawn out eviction or some huge thing like that. But my biggest advice is, if you do want to get into multifamily investing and become a landlord, the biggest thing, or maybe you already are a landlord, but it's not going so smooth. Biggest thing is to educate yourself. And I'm not trying to be rude with that, but this is, run it like a business. It's a business. You're collecting cash, you're trying to make cash flow. So if you want to do it, you got to kind of know the ins and outs. Listen to podcasts, read books, learn from people that have made mistakes, learn from people who have accepted cash, who have not actually signed a lease and just rented to a friend and then they probably had a bad experience. Do it good from the beginning and do everything with a high standard, and you'll probably get people or at least you'll draw tenants that have high standards. So it's just a little bit, give high standards, you'll get high standards. It's pretty simple, but all in all, if you're already an investor and it's not going so well, or you're a new investor wanting to get into this, my things are educate yourself, really learn the business, and once you actually get to the point where you're renting a spot, please do a background check and please actually vet them properly to know that they can pay rent. That's the biggest thing. So many people just don't do background checks. Please do a background check. And if this video has brought you any value, I would really appreciate a like. And if you have any questions or comments, drop them down below and I'll respond to them there. And again, if you're a new investor or you're already an investor, and you'd like to reach out and connect, my info again is on the screen or down below in the description. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time.